It's different, baby. I'm grateful I'm not 56 and trying.
Are you trying to say what you trying to say?
I'm looking right at you. I ain't backing down. You better take your old ass and get somebody to love you.
Damn, whoa.
Now.
Hi everyone, it's me, Anti-Black Barbie, the all-watchful eye of anti-blackness. So, amidst the Shannon Sharpe controversy, I felt like this would be a great week to try and have a conversation about Raceplay. So if you're not exactly sure what Raceplay is, I'll read off about one or two basic definitions you can find on Google. So our first definition says Raceplay, a type of sexual role play in which the players act out a racially charged situation, such as a master-slave relationship. Then our second definition says, raceplay refers to sexual activities that incorporate or exploit racial stereotypes and or power dynamics. It often involves role-playing or fantasies that perpetuate harmful notions about race and its implications in sexual encounters. Some individuals engage in raceplay for consensual exploration of their sexuality and fantasies, while others find it offensive and problematic due to its potential to reinforce racism and power imbalances. So I felt like it was important for me to read this off because I think that whenever we have these conversations, it typically gets very reductive. Everyone is always like, well, he didn't call me the N-word in the bedroom. And it's like, he doesn't have to do that in order for it to be race play. Race play can be a variety of different things on a much larger spectrum than what people think. It can be as rigid as someone calling you a monkey in the bedroom, or it could be as microaggressive as maybe an interracial couple making a TikTok video where they play into stereotypes about maybe their Black partner wanting chicken or their favorite food being watermelon or that they can't swim, or maybe that their Black partner is more violent, or doing something in juxtaposition to whiteness where they frame the white partner as more kind or more accepting or less homophobic or less racist, or just things where it will frame the white person in a much more forgiving light, which is a common tactic that white supremacists have done for generation after generation after generation. When you really think about these things in the historical context, it's not necessarily shocking that we're seeing so many people fall into these stereotypes because, like I said, again, these media sources and stereotypes have been along longer than we have been alive. So if we don't consistently challenge and push back on them, then it's easy for people to fall into these harmful stereotypes and relationships. But that being said, let's go ahead and get into the actual topic at hand. So, if you haven't been on Twitter or just the general internet within the last few days, I'll kind of go ahead and catch you up to speed. So basically what's going on is Shannon Sharpe is now coming out with a statement that he's being blackmailed by a 19-year-old who basically is threatening to put out very racially charged, sexually charged conversations. There's, I guess, some allegations of abuse as well. I'm not necessarily going to harp too much on Shannon Sharpe because, as I said, this conversation is more about race play, but it's more so to highlight that these things are not happening in a vacuum. And while we understand that Shannon Sharpe is currently in the hot seat, there's so many people of so many different ages who are participating and engaging in this behavior, and it's becoming more popular as time goes by. So I was originally going to read the messages off to you all, but every single time I listened back to me saying what was on the screen, I just became more and more disturbed and uncomfortable, and I just don't want to hear my voice ever say these words. So the fact that he's able to engage on such a deep and sexual level is actually very disturbing to me. It really, really speaks to his mindset and the level of depravity. So I'll let you all kind of read it while it's on the Jumbotron, and then we'll kind of move forward.
I pray to God you're guilty.
Learn something from this.
So outside of the fact that these messages are extremely trifling and disturbing all around, I really felt the need to highlight the time frame of it all because anyone with common sense would have typically dropped this person the minute they started with these racially charged comments, especially in terms of getting pregnant. But because Shannon Sharpe has more than likely been participating in this behavior since the dawn of time, he probably didn't see anything wrong with this. I mean, it's been a common conversation that Shannon Sharpe does nothing but play in snow. I hate to break it to people, but seeking out nothing but white partners is typically a huge indication of race play. Something inside that person's mind is becoming aroused by that specific race. Now, we don't necessarily know if it's just the skin tone itself, maybe the proximity to whiteness. We can't necessarily say for sure, but nobody without some kind of fetish or attraction specifically to that race will consistently find themselves in relationship after relationship after relationship. At some point, there would have been some Black people in there, some Asian people, but instead it's nothing but white. So it's like we already are coming to the conclusion that he is obviously aroused by this race. So, I mean, is it really that much of a stretch to assume that he's probably participating in very racially charged conversations as well? So I'm not going to necessarily speculate too much here or there, as I understand that more information is going to be coming out shortly that we can go ahead and review. So we'll go ahead and leave that there, but this actually leaves a great segue into the larger picture. So I've kind of just been gathering Reddit screenshots recently because I haven't been on there in years. When I was on there before, I remember it actually being a very normal, insane place. But when I came back here, I noticed that it was filled with nothing but race play. Every single forum that I would join, the majority of the people were all basically posting screenshots like this. So I'm not necessarily going to read off every single screenshot, but I will kind of just skim through it. So for example, the first one we have is a 27-year-old who's specifically looking for little white bros needed to come. So what he's saying is, in order for him to have some kind of release, he needs someone specifically that is white. Now, I get that at face value, we understand and we can read the basics, but I really want to reiterate that this whole love is love notion, or you can't help who you fall in love with, is really not realistic. When you actually look into their personal lives and you look through their digital footprint, 9 times out of 10, you're seeing them specifically advertise themselves to who they actually want. It's only when that they're actually challenged and have to confront their anti-Black desire that all of a sudden they just are saying that they can't help who they fall in love with. So I just want to go ahead and reiterate that this is a contradiction. And again, if you look further enough into their digital footprint, you will typically find messages like this. But anyways, let's keep going. So our next message says 21 top, looking for a long-term bubble butt white boy. So again, the bar is in hell. Literally, you just have to have a bubble butt. 9 times out of 10, they don't care if you're ugly. They don't care if you're old. They don't necessarily care if you have a bad attitude. They're not really putting any of that on there. Now, if you're Black, you definitely will have an entire list of things and criteria that you need to meet in order for you to even get through the door. So let's go on to the next one. The next one is actually very interesting to me because it's from the perspective of an 18-year-old white bottom. They said that they are an 18-year-old fat, hairy booty snow bunny and super sloppy throat goat. I need a long-term older hood BBC daddy. This is just another example that is starting at a very early age. White people, specifically conventionally unattractive white people, are aware that because they have a lower social capital, that means that they have to expand their options and typically prey on people with lower racial self-esteem who have a desire for white validation. And again, this can look like a variety of different things. This can mean when a white person gets older and they no longer have as many options, or maybe that they get out of shape and they realize that white people aren't necessarily looking for them that way. Or you could just be considered just a generally conventionally unattractive white person and you have to expand your options regardless of what you do. So a lot of the times they understand at a very, very early age that they have to use these tactics in order to find the person that they want. Okay, and our final screenshots on the right, 30 BBC needs a smooth white bottom that loves Black D. And he says this several times. I went through his profile up to 20 to 30 days of just him repeating this over and over and over again. So I just want to reiterate that again, when you see these people pop out with white partners, 9 times out of 10, it's not because there's just a coincidence. They're actually not only manifesting it, but actively searching these things out. And I mean, again, it shows to the level of desperation that they have and the need for white validation, which I can say that more than likely is what led Shannon Sharpe to be 56 years old, chasing a 19-year-old white girl who is on OnlyFans. He's so desperate for that need for white validation that he's willing to get it anywhere and everywhere. And a lot of the times, people of Shannon Sharpe's age, they don't want somebody who is mentally their equal or that can actually challenge them. They want someone who is young and naive that they can run game on. And that's why they pick them that young. But unfortunately for him, these young girls are getting onto the game. So, you know, he's in for a very, very long journey. And I wish him an ounce of luck. So I think I'll go ahead and leave that there. But if you enjoyed the video, again, go ahead and like, subscribe, and comment. It helps very, very much. And I'll see you all in the next one.